Good afternoon, everybody. We're just waiting for members of the committee to join us. And then we'll get ready to go.
Good day.
Good day. I think, Mark, your new name, when you said good day, it sounded just like Bob McKenzie.
I'd rather be Doug. I'm Doug McKenzie.
You'd rather be Doug?
Good day, eh? Actually, I don't remember which one was which, so I guess it doesn't matter.
They both share the similar intelligence, yeah. Actually, right?
Yeah. I actually got to interview which is which one is it now? What are their real names? Oh gosh, not oh good Lord, my brain.
What is it?
What's his brother? His brother's a musician has had a bunch of hits. Doggone it. Oh man.
Rick Moranis?
Not Rick Moranis, the other one. Rick Moranis and
the other one was Dave Thomas, wasn't it?
Dave Thomas, yeah, Wendy's.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, had a chance to interview him. He was playing with his brother Ian Thomas in Fort McLeod at the Empress there. So it was really cool. Yeah, it was really cool.
Awesome.
Very nice guy.
So everyone knows I may have to step out a little earlier for another appointment, so around 4, so I don't know where we'll be at that time, but just let everyone know.
Okay.
Groovy.
I think we all are. Is everybody? I think everybody's here, right?
It appears that all members of your committee are present and accounted for online, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Shall we go ahead then?
I defer to you.
I will then. Let's start. Okay, good. We'll call to order this meeting of the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee. We'll start with the acknowledgement statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So, Mr. Westerson, we'll do a roll call. Make sure everyone's here.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Chair. Deputy Mayor Shiro.
Here.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Higgin.
Present.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Campbell.
I am present.
Excellent.
Okay.
Committee members are present and accounted for. There's several members of administration and presenters online as well. And in the council chamber is myself, Ms. Bonacree from our office, as well as Darren Martins from the Galt Museum.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all coming. I will assign these all of these motions just as they come up to all of our individuals here. We'll start with the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda or the adoption of the agenda? Yeah, I guess the adoption of the agenda. All right. Be it resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting of the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee on April 15th, 2021 be adopted as presented. Councillor Miyashiro.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Anyone opposed? Okay. Then we will do the consent agenda. Be it resolved that the minutes of Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee held on Thursday, April 15th be approved and the chair and clerk designate be assigned to sign the same. and further be it resolved that the status of initiatives April 15th, 2021 be received as information. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I trust we've all had a chance to review them. Any questions, errors, omissions, or if none, call for the vote.
The vote's been called. Anyone opposed? That is passed. All right, moving right along to our presentations. Jillian Bracken, I assume, is online. I see her. Yes, she is.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I worked with the Japanese Garden Society to submit this, but they will be doing the presentation. So I see that Michelle Day is here. I'm not sure if any other, Brad Hambroff is here as well. So I'll turn this one over to them.
Konnichiwa and welcome, Michelle. Off you go.
Hi. I believe Dr. John Harding is going to be giving the presentation. Is he online?
I see her. Yes, she is.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I worked with the Japanese Garden Society to submit this, but they will be doing the presentation. So I see that Michelle Day is here. I'm not sure.
I see we're getting some kind of a delay on this recording somehow.
We're getting a little bit of feedback, Mr. Chair, from someone's speakers that is on the line. So I guess if you're not speaking, we just ask that you please mute. And to answer Ms. Day's question, I do not see Dr. Harding on the call at this current moment.
Okay, then I will give the presentation unless he comes on. So today we are here to pronounce, first of all, we'd like to thank council. Oh, John Harding is here. There he is. Oh, good. John. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, everybody.
It's okay. It's all right. Welcome to Zoom or whatever this is.
I'm afraid this is Teams. All of my teaching is on Zoom, so I'm doing Zoom every day, but have been on Teams just once, and they let me know that I needed an update. So I think I am now updated.
Excellent.
So John, we just started, so I will let you do the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. So am I right that everyone can see the PowerPoints that I see in one of the windows on my screen here?
Correct.
And then I just indicate when to advance them?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so we're very excited to be giving an update. This is a project that has been in the works for a long time and was at the idea stage well before that. As anyone who has gone by the Henderson Lake area can see, it is well underway now, and some of the work behind the scenes, including some of the work connected to the name for the building and the name for some of the rooms, is not as visible just by going by the area. So I wanted to make reference to some of what we have been doing there and of course be available for any questions. So if we could advance to the next slide, please. Some of you were involved with the commencement. We had some lovely ceremonies this last fall, including both Reverend Izumi from the Buddhist Temple of Southern Alberta, as well as Elder Calvin Williams, both giving different types of land blessings or calming the earth spirits. And for those who are in attendance, you may have noticed some really nice synergies between those ceremonies. They were quite similar in a number of ways that were very striking and just fit so well with the overall Nika Yuko Japan-Canada friendship feeling, bringing these traditions together in different ways. So our thanks again to all who are involved. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the main points for this meeting, an item for action, concerns the name itself. So could you please advance slides once again? And this is what we have proposed for the new building, the Nikayuko Bunka Center. So bunka means culture in Japanese. And of course, we've had the Nikayuko name for a very long time, meaning Japan-Canadian friendship. So we wanted to keep in that theme of using a common Japanese term like bunka, but then starting to make that term also a little more common in the parlance of Southern Alberta as we bring these traditions together. And this building is meant to be a community center in all ways, in terms of programming for a wide variety of communities. Some of the programming certainly focused on Nikayuko Japanese Garden and with some of that Japanese content, but also making the building open for other groups and activities as well, but with that focus still on culture and gatherings. Next slide, please. So this again shows a little bit of that background of the term bunka, as well as some of the images of the building that is well underway. So you can see the from the different perspectives. That view from the east is from the garden itself. So that large bank of windows is looking out toward the garden, directing the attention to people in the new building to the garden itself. Just as inside the building, we're trying to direct their attention to the history and some of the founders and visionaries who helped bring this together. And I'll turn my attention to some of those. If you could advance the slide again, please. So the idea again is that this building's a hub for a lot of different users of the Henderson Lake area. Here it's, you know, kind of a blank area in that grassy bit between the parking lot and where the garden is. There are a couple names here outside of the new building. Now, it's just the new building, I think, that is the sort of item for action for approval. But we're looking at a Yanoshita Center where we currently have the Visitor Center. It was Alex Yanoshita who gave that gift of $100,000 in the beginning that initiated a lot of this activity around the new building. Oh, I see a hand up from Jeff Carlson. Should I? Oh, no, wait on that one. Okay. The Kumakura Pavilion. So Kumakura is the company that built these structures in Kyoto, where they were then disassembled, shipped over, reassembled here on site. And Mel Murakami was so instrumental in that process, and a lot of the kind of translation from the Japanese cultural, even systems of measuring, to the Canadian reality of the contractors who are here and the businesses and the people who could be involved. So, you know, he was among the many who spent all of these various volunteer hours behind the scenes. So they're among the people we want to acknowledge. If you could advance slides again, please. You'll see the rest of the names inside the building. So Dr. Kubo and Dr. Sugimoto are both landscape architects. Dr. Kubo was the one with the who was originally enlisted to build this. He did the one up in Edmonton as well. But Sugimoto was here for about 55 years and still comes back on his own dime to look after this. So unbelievable oversight of this project. So he was on site before it opened, many times since. He still checks in on it because, of course, you know, a growing, evolving garden. So we're honoring him. We're honoring some of those visionaries like Cleo Mowers, the publisher of Lethbridge Herald. Reverend Yutetsu Kawamura was in conversation with Cleo Mowers, and his wife Yoniko Kawamura was helping many of the Japanese workers who were there and was involved in those earlier conversations too. Some names, some rooms are not named yet and are part of fundraising plans. And then if I could just finish up with the next couple slides, it's just a few images, again, that's kind of grouping together some of the people we're acknowledging through these names. So the next slide indicates the garden's visionaries. And if you advance again, please, it gets to a couple of those ones I was talking about who were in those early conversation with each other together. If we advance again, we move to the category of the garden's builders. Advancing slide one more time, please. We'll move from the builders to that picture of Kubo, Sugimoto, and Murakami. Again, some of these figures who were involved from the beginning. One really quick note, along with our board at the Lethbridge and District Japanese Garden Society, we have other members who we bring into these committees, including the new building committee for which I'm the chair. And one is Tosh Kaneshiro, and I worked very closely with Tosh on identifying these names of key visionaries and builders and some of these foundational figures. He knew them all. He was involved with the process from the beginning and was in a really good position to kind of indicate whose role was especially essential to acknowledge and honor in this way. If you could just please advance one more time. We've got a nice picture there going to the guardians and donor, and then advancing slides again. Bob Hironaka as a key guardian and Alex Yanoshita as the donor. I mentioned Yanoshita's donation already. Bob Hironaka, many of you know, he was a former chancellor of the University of Lethbridge. His role with the garden from the beginning, treasurer when it was first forming, on the board right up until his death a number of years ago. A good friend of mine who brought me onto the board a decade ago, and you know, one of the last surviving members of the names on the bell in the garden. Many contributions from Bob, so we were excited to be able to acknowledge him with the exhibit space. And then I believe there's just one more slide, if we could end on this one. Thanking you. Apologizing for some of my technical issues, switching platforms from Zoom to Teams, and of course opening up for any questions that you might have for any of us.
Thank you, Mr. Harding, for the presentation. It's very exciting to see things happening as they are, and what a tremendous amount of work that's been done to make it what it is today. We do have questions. One is from Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Dr. Harding. Nice to see you, Mr. Hembroff and Michelle and Ms. Day. And I appreciate it being here because that building has caused a lot of excitement in the community. It's very thrilling every time we were all in COVID lockdown to walk through Henderson Park and visit the gardens to see the progress. So thank you for updating us. Appreciate it. My question, Mr. Chair, through you to maybe Ms. Bracken, if I can. Hi, Jillian. Naming a facility, does council always do that? I think I've only been on, had two come in front of us ever on council. I think we waded in on CASA, and now we're involved in this one. But there's so many other facilities that appear. We didn't name the multicultural center. So I'm just wondering why this process is here. I appreciate it being here and seeing the name being announced to us, but do we really have to approve it?
I think that's the question of the moment, Councillor Carlson. I'm glad to hear that you appreciate the update. That was one of our main goals in bringing this forward, but we too weren't clear if council wanted to formally approve the name or if they were okay with the recommendation coming forward, and then the society can work with administration to realize that name on the building. So as you've mentioned, they've been handled different ways in the past. So I think that's the question we'd like to put forward to council as part of this too, is do you want to formally approve this, or are you okay with us moving forward with the recommendation without formal approval from council?
Okay, and thank you for that, because I didn't do it before we sat down here, but we do have some naming policies. And so I'm not sure if this falls into that. Traditionally, they're around like our own facilities or roads or parks. So maybe we need to look at that, but I appreciate it. And again, thanks for the update. It's very exciting.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Great, thank you. And I was going to ask the same question as Councilor Carlson, actually, once you brought it up. It reminded me what I was going to ask. And I do think the naming can't be unilateral between the Japanese Garden Society. I do believe that there has to be a better discussion with council following our naming protocol. So I would move that direction.
And I believe that's the direction that we're going for, is to present this to council for the approval, correct?
Right. But I do think the naming protocol needs to, I think the naming protocol needs to be implemented as well.
So is that something we do here in this committee, or is it something that we present at council?
Well, we make that recommendation. We can actually bring it forward. If they want those names, they have to show us how they got to those names and what the protocol says for that.
Okay, Councillor Carlson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Further to Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, perhaps we should do a further be it resolved that our committee review our naming policy and see how we can harmonize it, because it does seem that it's ad hoc. Some folks come to us and some folks don't. But I appreciate you guys taking the opportunity to highlight the project. So that's a good point. But I think we should maybe look at the policy and make sure that it's at least implemented fairly or uniformly.
Are there any other questions at this time from committee members? I see none. So I thank you for the great presentation. It is very exciting to see where you're at right now, and I enjoy going by Mayor McGrath Drive and seeing how it's about ready to be part of the community. So thank you for that. Councillor Carlson, would you like to make an amendment on the upcoming resolution that we have here?
Sure. Just that further be it resolved that our committee review our naming policy or any policies that would be applicable to naming facilities at a future meeting. If that makes sense.
Yes.
While that's being contemplated, just a quick, when is it opening? I don't know if I caught that.
Sure. Well, and Jillian and Michelle or Brad might want to jump in as well.
Are we not allowed to say? Is it secret?
I wouldn't say secret, but now there was a little bit of delay with the cold weather in February. But once the trusses went up and things were pretty much back on schedule, we're looking to be some events, some soft openings, maybe beginning as early as October, but more fully with the Winter Light Festival.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks for that.
Councillor Carlson, we do have Rob Villeneuve, who's the project manager from Facility Services, on the call too. So he did prepare a construction project update that was provided, but he may be able to answer that question as well from his perspective.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just seeing that in my package now. I guess I could have read that. Oops.
Yeah. So hi everybody. Rob Villeneuve from Facility Services here. So yeah, we're expecting to be complete this project by the end of August of 2021. So that'll be our substantial completion, and then obviously we'll have additional furnishings going in, and then just the final deficiencies and final items, and then we should be ready to go kind of early in the fall.
And thank you for that, Mr. Villeneuve. The very last line of the very last attachment tells me exactly what the answer to my question was. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay. Can I get the resolution up on Mr. Westerson, the amended resolution that we have, if I could? And I will ask Councillor Carlson to move this. Be it resolved that the sorry, I should have asked. Is there any other questions before we move forward? Sorry, I see Mr. Hembroff had your hand up.
Yeah, just a question in terms of timing. If I understand that this resolution is going to go before council, I suppose the question then becomes, when might that be, so that we can anticipate and plan appropriately.
Mr. Westerson, can you fill us in on that?
Sorry, I apologize. I just stepped away. Can you repeat the question quickly, and I can definitely do it.
Yeah, my question is just the timing as to when this will go to council and when we can anticipate a decision with respect to the name. I mean, obviously that becomes important to us in terms of planning.
Certainly, in practice that the cities use with this new governance structure and the city standing policy committees is that this resolution or this package would move forward to the sorry, I just looking at the calendar here, the May 4th meeting of City Council, unless council or a committee recommended that it not move to that date and wait until, as part of that further be it resolved, conduct a review. But the way that the current resolution is worded, it would be move it forward May 4th and then conduct that review afterwards.
And one final comment, just as a sort of a point of order and governance. As I look at your motion, it appears to me you're coupling the motion regarding the naming with a review of your naming policy. Should those not be distinct items? Just a process question for you guys.
Thanks, Brett. Mr. Hembroff, I don't think one will preclude the other. If that's what you're worried, that we'd have to do an entire review of our process and before the naming goes forward, they can be done separately. The naming will go forward to the next council meeting, not Tuesday, but probably 2 weeks from Tuesday.
Okay, great.
And the review would happen at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification for me too. Thank you. Good. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, again, thank you for your presentation. From Councillor Carlson, be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Committee received this presentation as information, and further be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council approve the name Nikayuko Bunka Center as the name for the new Nikayuko Japanese Garden Community Center from Project D25 2018 to 2027 Capital Improvement Center, and further be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council conduct a review of naming policies and processes. Councillor Carlson.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, and sorry, Councillor. Did we want to do a vote on the amendment presented by Councillor Carlson prior to?
I guess that would be the process.
Because it's my resolution, it's not an amendment.
Thank you. I missed that part. Thank you.
Thanks. The only question I have is, I'd ask my colleagues, should we recommend that council conduct the review, or should we just as a standing committee conduct that review and bring our findings? Because that was, I think we should just review it.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
so I think so too.
Yeah,
it's within the mandate of the committee.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Unless there's any questions of my colleagues? Can we also add a big thank you to Dr. Harding, Mr. Hembroff, and Ms. Day for their presentation and all the hard work? I don't think that needs to be part of the resolution. I just want to say that. Yes. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We look forward to welcoming you into that building with some programming soon.
Good. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Questions been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Arigato for the presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. All right. Let's moving next. And I think, Jillian, this is yours here as well. Community Arts and Culture, the Monument Policy Review.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Good afternoon, members of the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee. My name is Jillian Bracken. I'm the Community Arts and Culture Manager in the Recreation and Culture Department. Next slide, please. I'm here today on behalf of the Recreation and Culture Department to request from Council direction for administration to review City Council's monument policy and bring back to Council recommendations for changes to the policy. Next slide, please. The city's monument policy was established in 2005. Since its establishment, it has been reviewed and updated once in 2015. Next slide, please. A review of the monument policy would allow for several challenges and opportunities to be explored and addressed. These include care for existing monuments, management of new monuments, and sharing underrepresented stories. Next slide, please. One current challenge is caring for existing monuments. To date, the city has installed over 120 monuments on city property. There's no plan, nor is there an associated budget to care for aging monuments. Several have fallen into disrepair, and this number will continue to rise as monuments age. Next slide, please. Another challenge is managing new monuments that may be added to the city's collection by either the community or council. A more comprehensive monument management program could be developed. Moving forward, improved processes could include donation agreements, maintenance endowments, and the establishment of an ongoing conservation fund. A review of the monument policy would allow council to consider changing the scope of the policy to include different types of commemorations, similar to policies that exist in other cities. Monuments could become one component addressed in a broader policy. Broadening or changing the scope of the policy could be examined alongside work currently underway on an Indigenous Legacy Commemoration Project and updates to the city's Heritage Management Plan. Next slide, please. The third opportunity that exists concerns sharing underrepresented stories. A review of the monument policy could create space to consider how Lethbridge is telling stories to the community through monuments and whose stories are being told. Monuments are structures created to explicitly commemorate people and or events. They shape our understanding of the history and values of a particular place. In recent years, Canada's commitment to truth and reconciliation has compelled many cities to reconsider what moments in history and which historical figures should be valorized. Through a review of this policy, Council and administration could work together to ensure, one, that past commemorative practices or existing monuments do not perpetuate harm to Indigenous peoples or any underrepresented populations, and two, that future commemorative practices are diverse, inclusive, and include stories from previously underrepresented populations. Next slide, please. So today, the request of Council is to direct administration to review the monument policy CC27 and bring back to Council recommendations for policy changes. If direction to review the policy is received, an administrative working group will be formed to undertake the work. Recreation and Culture will lead the review and manage the working group. The group will include representatives from Planning and Development, Indigenous Relations, the Galt Museum and Facility Services, and additional internal city and external community stakeholders will be engaged as part of the review process as required. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Mark, you're muted.
Yeah, I did that on purpose to see if you're paying attention. Hey, good, good. Well done. Well done. You passed. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bracken, for the update on that, and I appreciate the information as well. Councillor Carlson, you have a question.
Thanks. Thanks, Ms. Bracken, for the presentation. How long would this process, you imagine it taking?
Well, I wanted to have a conversation with Council too, knowing what's coming up in the next few months, like when it would make sense for us to bring it back. I think this is important work, but we do have some time. Some of the monuments that we need to address aren't going anywhere. So I think it would take us probably 6 to 8 months to do, and then we can bring back at a time that is convenient for Council.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And further to that, I'm assuming Lethbridge Historical Society will be one of the outside stakeholders. If I didn't ask that question, Councillor Crowson would probably email me immediately.
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Crowson.
Thank you.
Just curious, Ms. Bracken, how many requests in a given year do we get for new monuments? Or what have you seen historically?
Yeah, I've been working for the city for almost 6 years now. In that time, I've worked with about 6 requests. So I would say on average 1 a year, although since COVID has hit, I haven't received any.
Councillor Kaufman is here. Yes, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Bracken, for the information. I have 37 texts from Councillor Crowson that we make sure Historical Society is involved. For asking that. Is it possible at some point to circulate? Is there a list of those? Like 120 just absolutely floors me. Is it possible to circulate a list for Council's information on that?
Yeah, we can do that.
That'd be appreciated. Thank you. Second question, when you form the committee, because this is a policy of Council, is it possible to have a member of this standing policy committee serve on it as well?
Yeah, if that's the direction of Council, we would be open to that. Councillor Kaufman, to your previous question, just to clarify that the term monuments is used loosely to include plaques and things like that. So that list of 120, it's not just all, huge sculptures. It's everything kind of under that monumental category.
Excellent. Thank you. That clarifies why I drive around and don't see 120 statues or stone features of some sort. So that explains some of it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Miyashiro.
Thank you. Just an answer to Councillor Kaufman as well. If you even go by the Fire Hall Training Center on the north side, I think within half a block there's 3 along the pathway. So at some point, I don't know who approved these, but there was a whole bunch of them around Henderson Lake too that you might just walk by and not even notice they're there. And I just have one other comment. I'm quite impressed with the Starship Enterprise, I believe, that Mr. Harper is sitting in.
Thank you. I don't have my yellow captain's shirt mug in my hand today though, so.
The fact that you actually have those is kind of scary to me.
You're calling me a nerd, are you?
With love, I'm sure. Do we have any other questions from our committee members here? I see none. Then I will ask Councillor Miyashiro to move this resolution, if I may. Be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee receive this presentation as information, and further be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee direct City Administration to review Monument Policy CC27 and return to a future meeting with recommended amendments. Councillor Miyashiro.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And perhaps as Ms. Bracken said, or maybe as Councillor Kaufman said, do we need to put further be resolved that the chair of this committee is also on that review panel? Or can they just change that in their terms of reference? It's a question before we go on.
Okay. Who would like to answer that?
If we're going to, so I guess if we're going to create, administration is going to review the policy and they've named a bunch of people or parties that need to be part of that. Perhaps when they go to develop that committee, they can just invite the chair of this committee. I guess it doesn't have to be on the resolution. All right, that's very good.
Okay, as long as that's understood with Ms. Bracken. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Other than that, we're open for questions for my colleagues.
I see no questions.
Well, that's a first. I will call the question.
All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? I see none. That passes. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Moving forward. Okay. Next up, Mr. Perry Stein. You're up. You're in the spaceship. No, you don't have a spaceship. Okay. All right.
Well, speaking of monuments, I think this is a very timely presentation. So I'm here to give an update to the Blackfoot Confederacy Lethbridge Reconciliation flag structure at City Hall. Next slide, please. So I was at the last SPC meeting giving an update on a broader suite of reconciliation, Lethbridge and Indigenous relations projects. I indicated at the time that I would like to come back to give an update on this project prior to confirming things with our industry partner who's going to help us design and put this in at City Hall. So I would like to do that today and make space for council to ask any questions. We're building something on your front lawn, so we want to make sure that you have a chance to ask questions and get information that is timely. So next slide, please. Just a quick review of where we've been and where we're going. This project was approved in 2018 as part of Council's 2019 to 2022 operating budget. The total budget approved was $150,000. In 2019, Indigenous Relations and the Reconciliation Committee partnered with the Lethbridge College School of Engineering Technologies to do a design competition. Some members of council were participated in that kind of design competition and the scoring and selection that went along with that. A winning design was chosen out of that. Since then, there's a bit of a pause because of COVID in the last year. However, this project has now been picked back up. Currently working with Facility Services and our construction partner at Dawson Wallace to finalize the drawings and the tendering of this. The estimated final cost is closer to $120,000 as opposed to the $150,000. And speaking with finance, the savings will just be flowed back into the MRSR that are realized through this project. What I'm going to present on the next slide is kind of the design of what's going to be move forward pending any feedback from this committee. Once we have your support, our next step is to finalize those plans with our construction partner, but also to start a formal process of engagement with the Blackfoot Confederacy about permanently raising their flag, as well as some plaque language that we would like to accompany this structure as part of its commissioning. Again, the estimated or anticipated installation date is well ahead of Reconciliation Week. We see that as the most appropriate moment to formally and permanently raise both the Reconciliation Lethbridge flag and the Six Agates to be, or the Blackfoot Confederacy flag. Next slide, please. We had to, take some liberties with the design that won the design competition to ensure that we could be respectful with council's budget. The design that was chosen, we tried to take as many elements as we could that fit within our budget to honor the work that those students did, but also we wanted to ensure that the design that was ultimately constructed fit within the overall kind of architectural design of City Hall, but it stood out and had a place of prominence. So what you'll see on your screen to the left is how the new structure in dark gray on the lawn there, where it says new flagpole plinth, there's space to fly 3 flags. So we had some discussion at the last SPC about 3 or 4 flags. We've been able to kind of narrow it to 3, which again results in some cost savings. And the structure will be more or less the same kind of physical presence as the existing flagpole structure that lines the staircase going into the administration building. And just in front of the middle flagpole, we are looking to install probably 2 plaques that will, we're just working with the Reconciliation Committee members to finalize the language for, that'll kind of talk about, Blackfoot territory, include the city's official land acknowledgement statement, and have some description of both the reconciliation flag, which was inspired by work of Dr. Leroy Littlebear, and a description of the Six Agates to be flagged. So that, with those flags flying 20 feet in the air, it might be difficult to for community members to understand what exactly those flags are all about. So we'd like to provide a little bit of information. So the true benefit of this project can be realized, which is about public information. Next slide, please. That is the extent of the presentation. I'm very happy to answer any questions that members might have.
Thank you, Mr. Stein, for the presentation. I really appreciate the update. I was just going to ask, what do you know of what the experience was like for the students at the college to be involved with this project?
So we had really good feedback from both administration at the college and the students themselves. So we put the offer out to, I think, first and second year students, or second and third year students in different engineering technology programs. 2 groups participated, so 4 students. They went through a process with elders from the college and with members of the Reconciliation Committee, learning about Blackfoot culture, learning about Métis culture. So I believe it was a very rewarding process. That's kind of the feedback that we had. It resulted, I think the purpose of that was to have an educational opportunity. It wasn't necessarily to design the flagpole structure that was ultimately going to be built, because the students didn't have, costing criteria as one of theirs. It was more about cultural opportunities. So it was a positive educational experience and put us in a good direction to finalize design.
That's great, because I was just thinking, this was beyond a design competition. It was, like you say, it was all about an educational experience. So I'm glad to hear that. We have other questions. Deputy Mayor Higgin.
I'm upgraded to deputy mayor. Awesome.
I'm sorry. Are you? Or what? Sorry. Are you acting? You're acting mayor. Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Stein, for the presentation. A question I have is, so when this first came to council as a city initiative, I was trying to search through as you're speaking there. Do you recall what the dollar amount was that was first requested? I thought it was 400,000 or something. Is that correct?
The approved motion is for up to 150,000.
No, prior, when we first looked at doing this before going out, does anyone of my other colleagues remember? I wanted to say it's around 400, or was it 300? I just.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was way. It was like 2 or 3 times more than that.
Yeah, and that's what I just wanted to know kind of where we're at, and I see that it's at 150, and you're coming in, it looks like at 120 when everything is said and done. So great work. Appreciate, you know, the work that's gone into this and the engagement, especially with, you know, the post-secondary institutions and with the Indigenous population. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
If I could just respond to that, we tried to keep in mind a balancing of priorities, and so the Reconciliation Committee was very clear to us since 2019 that while it's important that this structure feel like it, and I think I mentioned this at the last committee meeting, while it feels that it should belong, it shouldn't feel like it was always there. It's an important milestone in the city's reconciliation journey. So we tried to keep that spirit and intent as we were going through this. And part of that was about cost savings to balance community priorities.
Thank you.
Mr. Stein, is there, sorry, realizing, is it polls that will be going in? Is it 3 or 2?
3.
3.
So the reason behind that was historically with our current 3 polls, when a community organization wants to fly one of their flags, that the city of Lethbridge has to lower their flag.
Right. So
with this new flagpole structure, we will have the Canada, Alberta, Lethbridge, Blackfoot Confederacy, and Reconciliation flags able to fly permanently, and continues to be a space for whether it's a Lethbridge Pride flag, whether it's United Way flag, or other flags that we tend to fly on a kind of an annual basis.
Fantastic. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Stein, for the presentation. My question was exactly yours, Chair Campbell, around the third flag and how it's going to be utilized. We have a flag policy. Does that need to be amended before we start flying flags on the new site?
That's a good question. We have been paying attention to the flag protocol that exists from the provincial and federal government, and that's mostly about order and height. We'll make sure that we keep that in mind as we're finalizing the design and the heights of the Canada flag is obviously at the top, closest to City Hall, and the new plinth will be much lower than that, but we'll make sure we're cognizant of that as we finalize design.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering if we should at some point take a look at our, and I believe it's just called the flag policy. I can't even remember. But I think we should maybe perhaps take a look at that because there may be some amendments needed to that before we go live with this. But thank you for the presentation and the update.
Deputy Mayor, I think, Miyashiro.
Yeah, she'll just call me. Perry, I just wanted to say that it's not really a question, it's more of a design comment that I really love how it follows the arc of the original structure at the steps of City Hall. I think that's a brilliant move to show the continuity, and I think everyone involved in this project should be quite proud of the work that's been done in the design phase. So good.
Thank you very much. We'll pass that along.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Campbell. Thank you, Mr. Stein, for the work on this, and to echo the other sentiments, that it looks very nice, and I'm very happy with what the students have presented. To Deputy Mayor Carlson's comment about the policy, can I respectfully suggest that maybe that come to governance and we can look at it? Of course, flags are symbolic, and there is a symbolism, and if we're choosing to move flags from one position to another, does it make a statement about the priority, about the significance, about the presence of that organization or that people or that belief in our community? Or is the intent for the Canadian city and provincial flag to remain solely on the current plinth?
Is that a question for me?
Don't you agree? If there is a thought or a sentiment around that currently, then that would be, yeah, you're welcome to certainly to answer that one.
The only kind of thought I've had about that is the location of the new flags on that new plinth allows us to install a plaque in front of it that can be more physically proximate and therefore more relevant. It might be more difficult for us to install something like that on an existing walkway or the existing plinth. So that's one aspect that we try to keep in mind is There was one iteration of this design where the plinth was turning in a different direction, but actually reorienting it this way allows us to have some interpretive information, if we can call it that, along the sidewalk entering City Hall as the first thing that a member of the public might see. But we can take a look at the flag policy if you'd like, and see if there's an opportunity to make some updates.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Campbell.
Okay, Mr. Carlson, do you have your hand up? Nope.
I think I forgot to lower it. Sorry,
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Just call me Plinth. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Acting Mayor Higgin, can you take this resolution, please? Be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee receive this presentation as information. And actually, having said that, do we want to add an amendment to this? I see Mr. Carlson has it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If you were thinking what I was thinking, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Further be resolved that policy CC 50 be referred to the governance SPC for review. And it's
Right.
basically just because, yeah, it keeps referring to the 3 flags, etc. So that needs to be amended.
Okay.
And would that be better than if that's an amendment from you, Councillor Carlson, that if you want to take this reso, would that be a smoother process, or can I just take it as a friendly? We don't have to do a 2-vote.
Okay.
Friendly.
Take it as a friendly. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. I'll pass it on to you, Acting Mayor Higgin.
I will call for the vote. Or first, any questions?
And we did make that amendment, Mr. Westerson.
That's correct. We heard it's a friendly
I
amendment.
haven't seen. Perfect.
Thank
Thank you.
Right, there it is. Good. All right.
Awesome.
The vote's been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That passes. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Stein. Appreciate it. Did you get your hair cut? You did. Did you? No. Did you? Has that been a while?
Is that an on the record question?
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Or is it tied up in a ponytail in the back?
No, it's chopped off. End of an era.
It looks good. Anyway. Sorry, I got away from everything. Sorry. Okay. Moving along. We have submissions here from Lori Harrison, Recreation and Culture Development Manager. I imagine, Lori, you were here. Ms. Harrison, thank you very much for being here. Do we have questions or is there anything that you'd like to say at this time, Ms. Harrison?
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. I don't think there's anything to add, but I am definitely available to answer any questions.
Councillor Carlson.
Thanks. Just for clarification, it's probably in the report had I read it more closely. There are carryover funds, and where do those go? Do they just remain in the program?
They do, yes, yeah.
In perpetuity, or at the end of the 4-year cycle, do they flow back to the MRSR?
Well, I don't think we've ever had them carry over that far because we're usually oversubscribed. So actually carrying them over will allow us to fund more events when events are allowed to be taking place again. So it's actually a really good position to be in coming out of COVID.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Harrison, do you have requests sort of, in the wings when COVID gets back? When we're done with COVID, are you ready to go with the remaining money that you have?
Yes, Councillor Campbell, we've been encouraging groups to apply even though they don't know what is going to happen, obviously, with COVID, because we'd rather be prepared for events to take place once they're allowed rather than have a bit of a lull while organizations figure things out again. So what we've been doing is having them apply as per normal. We approve them as per normal, but we don't disperse the first funding until close to the event, just to make sure that the event is actually going to go ahead. And that has worked for the few events that have been able to happen, which have all been virtual events.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any other more questions? I see none. Thank you, Ms. Harrison, for being here. I'll pass this over to Councillor Carlson for this resolution. Be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee receive the Community Event Support Grant 2019-2020 report for information, and further be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council approve the Community Event Support Grant 2019-2020 report as an attachment 2. Councillor Carlson.
Unless there's anything further from my colleagues, I'd like to thank Ms. Harrison for the report and information, and I'll call for the vote.
Vote's been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That passes. Thank you very much. Moving forward is Mr. Thompson with us here. Yes, he is. Good.
Yes. So this is a request for City Council to approve the use of uncommitted accrued interest from the Municipal Block Fund for the Lethbridge and Regional Community Housing Corporation Senior Housing Project. And so to summarize, LHA requested some funding to support their new seniors project, and under the Affordable Housing Capital Grant Program, $146,031, and they were approved for that particular funding for that grant for that project. Now, we have the municipal block funding grant that goes all the way back to 2007. The latest installment was the 2010 grant. Now, all of that funding has been allocated, but until it is actually dispersed, it stays in our bank and collects interest. And so every day, you know, that interest will accrue and it will grow. And we're at, you know, today at around that $58,900 mark. And that money must be committed before December 31st, which is the due date to spend it or, you know, get it out the door. And so what we're saying is we would like to take those few remaining dollars to close that grant out and switch it from the affordable housing grant. And so the Affordable Housing Capital Grant is our internal fund, and we're simply doing a switch where we're going to give LHA the same amount of money, but we're simply going to reduce the amount we take out of our pot by 58,000 and change and take it out of that MBF fund.
We have some questions. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thanks, Marty. I don't know if you know this. I think that's a really good way to use the dollars. The one question is the sewer, the wastewater main line in that neighborhood, will be able to handle that many units when you're adding on the sanitary sewer line? Have you guys had that discussion? Do you know the answer to that?
Rob, you were really breaking up in the beginning. Can you please repeat that question?
Sorry. So the question that has to do with not about the dollars, but about the sanitary waste line is will that sanitary line to that project put any greater stress on the capacity of the sanitary sewer system in that neighborhood? That's the question I have.
So I would have to follow up on that because that would be a technical question relating to an infrastructure issue. Right. And I would simply have to follow up on that. I simply wouldn't have that type or level of information. I can tell you that when we do go through these types of approvals, you know, all of that is addressed via another department. And so I'm sure if there was a concern, they would address that in the infrastructure arm of that discussion.
Yeah. So the infrastructure services said they could do that.
Yeah.
But they didn't. But I guess my concern or my question is about the impact on the capacity in the neighborhood. I know they wouldn't approve it unless they said it could happen. But I know that historically, the wastewater system in that whole corner of the city lacks capacity just because of how far it is from the wastewater plant. So yeah, if you can just find it, it's more of just a what if, I think.
Yeah, we can follow up with that
Okay.
and get back to you.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I agree heartily. Great use of these funds. My only question, and I don't know if Haley's with us. I wish Haley was here because we have an exact number that we're moving in the resolution, whereas the actual briefing talked about a minimum, because as we said, this is the amount that was there in March. As you said, Marty, it's accruing every month. So if we approve an exact 58,968, and by the time it's transferred, it's actually 59,200 or whatever it is, we still have a balance there. I'm wondering if there's a way to say transfer the balance. I don't know. I just don't want to leave.
That's a great question, and that's why we worded the recommended action, and this was on the advice of finance.
Okay.
That City Council approve the use of uncommitted accrued interest from the municipal block fund to that project. And so although the balance as of today is 58 and change, by the end of the month, it's going to be higher. And so we wanted you to know kind of here's what that balance is right now. So you have a clear picture of how many dollars we're talking about, but recognizing it's going to slowly grow. And it's a way to allow us to allocate all remaining dollars to that project. It really becomes an internal dollar transfer.
Right. So maybe, Mr. Chair, and as I say, I wish Haley was here. Maybe Mr. Westerson can help. When we go to the resolution or the motion, maybe strike out the in the amount of 58,968 and just leave it as Mr. Thompson says, that we recommend the use of the uncommitted accrued interest. And that way, if it is $50, $100 more, it's all used and we close out that account. So that's just my thought going forward. Thanks, Mr. Thompson.
Does that work for you, Mr. Thompson?
So respectfully, I just want to make sure I'm on the right page, because in the actual recommended action, it doesn't indicate the actual amount.
Right. But our
I see in the actual document on the screen, it does. I get it. Yeah. So we'll have, I suggest Ryan makes that change, and I agree. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We made the change there on the screen and defer to the mover.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Thompson?
What about my hair?
Did you get a cut too? It's so nice. All right. I will ask Acting Mayor Higgin to move this motion, please. Be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee received the Lethbridge and Regional Community Housing Corporation LRCHC Municipal Block Funding Allocation Submission as information, and further be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee recommends that City Council approve the use of uncommitted accrued interest from the Municipal Block Fund for the Lethbridge and Regional Community Housing Corporation Seniors Housing Project. Mr. Higgin.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I am unmuted. Didn't know if I was unmuted. Thanks. I appreciate the comments and stuff on that. And it's what an innovative way to be able to use this. And so thank you for everyone and their comments. And I will call for the vote.
The question's been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for your bringing that forward to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's those are the submissions. Up next is committee reports, and I understand we have Mr. Martins in council chambers. He wants to give us an update. Mr. Martins?
Good afternoon. I would like to, at this point, introduce the chair of the Galt Museum and Archives, Vic Mensch. who is joining us online to basically talk to you about some of the highlights related to our 2020 annual report. So, Chairman Mensch.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, and good afternoon, members of the Social and Cultural SBC. Thank you for the opportunity to showcase a few highlights of the Galt Museum and Archives 2020 annual report. And I understand that someone is going to be flipping through the annual report there for you so that we haven't got it coordinated or anything like that. So anyway, 2020 was a very challenging year for the cultural services community here and around the world, as all of us know. At the Galt and Fort Whoop-Up, we saw record decreases in visitation, school and community program participation, and venue rentals, all as a result of COVID-19 and the operating restrictions that sought to keep the community safe. But the news from the museum and the fort in 2020 is not all bad. As you will see in our report, those who did engage with us had a great time and did so in a safe environment. What made it even more challenging for us is that the Galt was transitioning from one CEO to another. The pandemic hit us with closures just as Darren Martins, our new CEO, began his work. That is not something that experience teaches us, how to look after a pandemic. But Darren took the helm of the good ship Galt and steered a careful course through the waters of 2020. As one of the first organizations to reopen in June, and then in July, Fort Whoop-Up, we maintained a COVID-19 free environment. Diligence and screening, cleaning, and providing services in a safe and responsible manner were our priorities, in that we did not fail. Not one single case has been traced to the Galt, Fort, or the staff at either institution. The board and staff team is extremely proud of this fact and sets a benchmark for how we plan to re-engage with our community once restrictions are eased. We also imagine content creation and delivery. Video and live streaming became our primary method of reaching and engaging with our audiences near and far. A record number of hours watched on our YouTube channel and through our Facebook live events indicates that what we were producing was resonating with our online audience. The Galt will continue to invest in video-related initiatives as they continue to provide that personal experience with history, art, culture, and community that has taken such a beating over the year. If anything, this experience with the online world has really affirmed in our minds that there is a real market to be had there. Research requests for both cultural and archives material continues to grow. Curiosity has not been limited by COVID-19. Because of this, our collections team was busy throughout the year fulfilling research requests and providing community members, scholars, teachers, and researchers with valuable information and content in order for them to continue their work. Research from a Galt Museum and Archives perspective appears to be COVID resistant, and we are happy for that. We anticipate growth to continue in this area and look forward to serving our community near and far. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few highlights of last year, and I would invite you to read through the institution's annual report to learn in depth and detail about what occurred. The team at the Galt has learned a great deal about innovation, adaptation, reinvention, and change. As community members can experience aspects of their hard work through our website and social media chat channels. As a board, we are tremendously proud of their ongoing efforts to serve this community and provide opportunities for exploration, learning, and knowledge building. Through them, Lethbridge's stories will continue to unfold. Thank you, and if there are any questions, I'm sure Mr. Martins will be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Mensch. Well done. You should get on the stage, be a theater guy. What do you think?
I did once with you.
I remember. Do we have any questions for Mr. Mensch or Mr. Martin? I see none. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us an update. And again, these challenging times, and it's wonderful to see some innovation and the ability to, as they use the word, pivot, and that's what you did. And hopefully we can put this all behind us and move forward.
I hope so too.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. I will give this next resolution to Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Oh, sorry, I have a question from Mr. Carlson.
Just a question on process first, Mr. Mensch, Mr. Martin. Thank you for the presentations. And I know Councillor Morrow would want to comment, Mr. Martin's, on your bow tie. He loves a bow tie. So thank you for that. Just a question, and I closed my resolutions. When the SPC receives this for information, do we send it on to council just for their information? It is sort of the oversight purpose that this committee serves, but I think we should also ensure that it is forwarded to council for their information as well. I don't know if that needs to be part of the resolution or if that just happens. Maybe Mr. Westerson can fill me in on that.
It's supposed to go into the next consent agenda. That it's been reviewed, and if anyone has any questions, they can ask questions about it at that point. That's how the last couple have gone anyway.
Okay, so good. So we don't have to add a further that it be forwarded to council. It just happens.
You can check with Mr. Westerson for sure, but that's the way the last few went.
Mr. Westerson?
For consistency's sake, we can definitely add the further result to be forwarded to City Council for their adoption or approval. And definitely, Deputy Mayor Miyashiro has it correct. It does form part of the consent agenda, and so the date in which it would form the consent agenda is the 4th of May.
Nice. And I don't think it needs to be approved or anything by council. As long as it's there for their information, I think they'd appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Be it resolved that the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee received the Galt Museum and Archives 2020 Annual Report for information. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Mensch, for your presentation today. Thank you to all the staff at the museum for what they've done to keep it going in the last year. I know it's been tough for everybody. Great annual report, lots of information, lots of really and lots of great pictures of what has gone on. And I like that you've highlighted the staff and their contributions. So if there's no further questions or comments from my colleagues, I'll ask for the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That is passed. Thank you, Mr. Mensch. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I now have a resolution from Councillor Carlson. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn the regular meeting of the Cultural and Social Standing Policy Committee until May 20th, 2021. Mr. Carlson.
Call the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
I am. Just kidding. Just kidding.
All right, that is passed.
Just trying to make Blaine late.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you. Nice haircut, Rob.
Thank you.